Hey, this is Regina White Favors with a new series. This is Overcoming Lot Setback series. When you linger too long, Lot is an interesting character in the Bible because we get more about God's relationship with Abram than we do with God's relationship with Lot. In fact, there is actually no relationship that Lot has with God. But when God wants to act and when God wants to do anything on behalf of Lot, he goes through Abram, who actually has a relationship with God. So you can understand, you may be able to understand the Lot character just by examining the relationship that God has with Abram or Abraham later when he changes his name. But I wanted to do a setback series on this because we have experienced some lots in our own lives. They just come in different forms. Lot is the type of person, in my eyes, in my understanding, he's not necessarily a worker. And if he is granted an assignment by God to do something, there is no indication that he has done something. In the scriptures, we don't see him actually producing or doing anything. If anything, we see him sitting at the gate when the two men come to approach the city. Then we also hear the perception of the men who want to sleep with the angels, of the two men, that Lot is somebody who came to live um, in their city, and he's supposed to act like a judge over us. And that's some kind of indication that Lot was supposed to do something in that city, but he had no vision, he had no purpose. Then, when the king's rebellions happen and the kings flee, King of Sodom, king of Gomorrah, Lot doesn't take up the mantle, doesn't take up the baton to do something to bring the city together. So it's a city of wickedness. The people are wicked. The surroundings are wicked. And you have this one person that Abraham prays to God about, first starting out if there are still 50 righteous, and then he goes all the way down to like one or something like that. And I guess Lot ends up being the one because God preserves his life. He saves his life. He sends the angels to usher him out. But there's some reluctance on Lot to actually leave the city because he's so preoccupied with the surroundings that he's in. So the Lot in your life could be the type of person that no matter how you try to pull them and how you try to warn them and how you try to get them to understand their situation as being very toxic and detrimental, that even when you try to take them by the hand to take them out of that immediate environment, they are still unwilling. They linger too long. The scriptures even say, read that he actually while he lingered. Here it is, the two men are trying to warn them that God is about to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, and Lot is lingering. And if you stay with a person like Lot, it might endanger your own life. So that's what I want to discuss for this particular setback series, overcoming Lot setback when you linger too long, and how it might have an impact upon you and your decision making. If you know you're supposed to leave a particular place, leave a country, leave your family, and you're lingering too long, the longer you linger, the more that place is going to have an impact on you, and it can be in a very detrimental, destructive uh, way. So keep this in mind as we go over this presentation. So let's define linger. It's a simple definition, but then I'm going to apply what you see there, wait around. So to linger is to stay in a place longer than necessary because of a reluctance to leave. And so synonyms are wait around, stay, remain, stay put, wait, lauder. And then the wait around is something that I'm going to apply throughout the presentation, to stay in a place with nothing particular to do. So I mean, we can get a visual in our head of just waiting around or staying somewhere or remaining put or staying put. It depends on what's going on. If you are in a situation where it may be more dangerous for you to leave, then you may need to stay put, right? You linger a little bit, right? That's for your safety. But then if you know you're in a situation where you need to go on ahead and leave, because if you don't leave, it could cost you your life, then you don't stay put. And so with both definitions for linger and then wait around, it's usually it's it usually has something to do with this idea that you know it's time to go. You've had indications that it's time to go. You don't necessarily need somebody to tell you that it's time to go. You just know it's time to go, but it's a reluctance to leave. That means you've gotten settled in that situation. You've gotten too comfortable in that situation. You don't want to leave it. Sometimes you just have to be honest. You don't want to leave the situation, whatever the situation is. It can be a relationship. Sometimes it can be a marriage. I don't advocate for divorce or anything like that. But if there's a situation where the partner is cheating, um, and you have done all you can to try to appeal to the person to stop cheating, pray for the person, tarry long, all everything that you've done, and they still don't want to stop, then that person has already made a decision to stay in the situation that they're in the toxic dynamic that they're in. So if you stay in that toxic dynamic when he's deciding that he wants to continue in a relationship with the mistress, or she wants to continue in a relationship with her mister, and you do that, it's going to affect you somewhere. It's going to affect you in your mental, your psychological, your finances, your physical. It's going to, and then it might actually affect your person. That those two individuals might decide to conspire against you and do something very, very deadly towards you. So when it comes to lingering because of a reluctance to leave, there's some sort of nostalgia there. There's some sort of sentimentality there. There's some sort of desire there. There's also this idea that I don't want to start over. There's this investment. You stay so long and invested, you want a return on your investment, but you have to think to yourself, maybe you won't ever get a return on your investment in that situation. The wait around aspect of it is this idea that you stay in a place with nothing particular to do. So you've been somewhere for a long time, and meaning that you should have left that place a long time ago so you can be productive somewhere else, but you decided to stay there. And maybe if you put this on a job level, a workforce level, you stay in there because the job pays well, and if you leave it, you're gonna have to go to some sort of unknown job to be influential and productive and a contributor there. So you would rather stay where you are now, even though you're not really contributing. If anything, you're just maintaining, which has some aspect of contribution, but it's just maintaining. You're not doing anything of service. You're not doing anything to improve the current environment there. And so you're just waiting around. You're just staying in that place with nothing particular to do. So you don't even know what your assignment is. You don't know what your life assignment is. You don't know why you're there. You don't know what the purpose is. You don't know the importance of whatever it is you need to do in that environment, which tells me you shouldn't likely be in that environment. It's time to leave. Uh, quick summary. So, just a quick thing here. When God tells Abram to leave his family and his countrymen, he takes Lot with him, or Lot goes with him. Everything was going well between Abram and Lot until the land could not support them, their cattle and possessions, and their herdsmen. Lot also, who went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. Now the land was not able to support them that they might dwell together. For their possessions were so great that they could not dwell together. And so then the two men separate, which tells you that if eventually something like this was going to happen. When you look at the scriptures, I don't see anything about how Lot gained cattle, possessions, and herdsmen. I don't know if it comes from Abram, but somehow he has it too. So here it is. There, he was never really supposed to take Lot with him, but he ends up taking Lot with him, or Lot goes with him without asking, or something like that. And so it comes to a head. It comes to a crossroad. It comes to a brick wall, that metaphorical brick wall, that they end up having to separate. And so Lot goes his way, and Abram goes his way. So it's at this point that Abram inherits Canaan. Lot is taken captive and rescued during the king's rebellions. God changes Abram's name to Abraham. God establishes a covenant that Abraham will be the father of many nations. God reveals to Abraham his plans to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham intercedes on behalf of the cities. The men try to take Lot out of the city to preserve his life, but Lot lingers and bargains to go to Zoar. God eventually destroys the city. So the two men were trying to get Lot to go up into the mountains, but then Lot tried to bargain and said he doesn't want to go that route, and so can he go into the city Zor? And then he ends up going into the city Zor, and the two men were saying we can't destroy the city until you leave. And the fact that he needed to bargain, it reminds me something about the stages of grief when you get to the bargaining stage. So Lot might have been going through a grieving process in terms of having to leave one place to go to another. Well, he eventually ends up leaving that city of Zor because he didn't feel safe, and he goes up into a cave, and that's when his two daughters sleep with him. So they bring Sodom and Gomorrah, they kind of reignite Sodom and Gomorrah, even though it has already been destroyed. So here's my preliminary assessment of Lot. I don't think he's a worker. When you look at Abram's decision and then Lot's acceptance. So here's Abram's decision. So Abram said to Lot, "Please let there be no strife between you and me, and between my herdsmen, for we are brethren. Is not the whole land before you? Please separate from me. If you take the left, then I will go to the right. Or if you go to the right, then I will go to the left." So Abram was much more conciliatory. He just wanted peace. He wasn't going to engage in a conflict or anything like that, any type of war between the family men, the countrymen. But he is forced to make this type of decision because he brought Lot along with him. So Lot's acceptance. This is where I feel like he is not necessarily a worker. And Lot lifted his eyes and saw all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt as you go towards Zoar. Then Lot chose for himself all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east. Lot was based his decision on what he saw. The immediate gratification that he got when he saw something that was already well watered, meaning that he didn't have to toil for it. He didn't have to labor for it. It was already well watered. And I say this that he's not a worker because we don't get any indication in previous scriptures that he worked towards anything. We just see him with herdsmen, cattle, possessions, but we don't see him actually working towards anything, tilling the land. Now, this could be some bias on my part, but it just reminds me of that type of person who gets something for nothing. And you can tell that to be true because later in the scriptures he ends up losing it because he was just sitting at the gate. He didn't do anything, and so he ends up losing the very thing that he saw was good for him. Now there are some aspects of life where you may get something that is already well watered. Even God said in the scriptures that you got to give you lands, got to give you houses that you didn't build right because of your obedience. That can happen, but for most of life is toil and work. Problem with Lot, which is now let's look at application of wait around. So Lot sits at the gate. That's something that you want to think about. Now the two angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting at the gate of Sodom. And so the wait around then would be to stay in a place with nothing particular to do. What was he doing sitting at the gate? There was nothing that he was doing. There was no further explanation of him sitting at the gate. He's just sitting at the gate. And maybe it reminds me sometimes of people who want one foot in, one foot out of a situation, of a toxic situation. They know they need to get out of it, but they refuse. One foot in, one foot out, knowing that they need to leave one thing and go into another. It could be leave this job to go to college. It could be leave this family to start becoming an adult. It can be a number of things, but it reminds me of this person who has one foot in the city and one foot out, and that could be people who are in sinful relationships. They know they need to give their life over to God, but they're struggling with a particular issue that they don't want to get out of. And so that could be one foot in, one foot out. But the gate is that sort of in between the city on the left side, the outside on the right. And he's sitting there with nothing in particular to do. Lot is supposed to be a judge. That's the perception of him. I'm not saying that's what he's supposed to be, but I'm saying that the perception of him, based upon how the men react to him, suggests to me that he was really supposed to be a judge. Judge could be judging the city, like he was supposed to be the person to judge the city, and he refused. Right? Judge could be an actual position that he's supposed to take on a position. It's nothing worse than a person who actually is supposed to be the supervisor of a team, but won't do it out of fear or something like that. And then you have another supervisor who's not really supposed to be a supervisor, and he doesn't know what he's doing. So, and they said, stand back. Then they said, this one came in to stay here, and he keeps acting as a judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them. So, to me, what that means is there, when he first got to the plains of Jordan, there might have been a time that he was supposed to take on the mantle of being a leader in that land. But he got sidetracked with how well watered the land was. It was already, he didn't have to do anything. He didn't have to put his hands to anything. So then, when you're not doing anything in particular, you get comfortable, you get complacent, you get sort of indifferent towards it. But something in the men and how they perceive Lot tells me that they knew he was supposed to be doing something. Now Lot wants to do something, be a judge, so to speak, but they don't want to receive him now. Whatever opportunity that he had prior to that, they don't want to receive now. It has passed. That's why I believe he's sitting at the gate, because maybe he feels a failure. Maybe he feels like he doesn't have anything worthwhile to contribute. But had he started when he uh, first got there, then the men might have had some form of respect towards him. Now he decided to get there, do nothing, wait around, do nothing, don't get any instruction from the Lord, don't get any direction or anything like that. Wait around. And so then when trouble really comes, now he wants to act. Here's my other perception of Lot. Lot does not have a relationship with God. So God doesn't, and this is in the form of what God does not do with Lot, but you see what God is doing with Abraham. God does not warn Lot that he will be taken captive during the rebellion between the kings. God does not warn Lot about king of Sodom and king of Gomorrah fleeing to the mountains during the rebellions. God does not warn Lot that Sodom and Gomorrah would be judged and subsequently destroyed. God does not warn Lot about his daughters sleeping with him in the cave. Lot does not intercede on behalf of Sodom and Gomorrah. He does not intercede on behalf of their wickedness. Abraham intercedes for Sodom. So when you see, you can tell that God does not have a relationship with God. Lot does not have a relationship with God when you compare that lack of relationship to the relationship that you do see God have with Abraham. And that could be because God is going to do great things through Abraham, no problem. However, I would think that if you had a relationship with God, that God would tell you, he would warn you about the rebellion. He would warn you about two major kings fleeing to the mountains. He will warn you that he's going to judge the city. So what? So there's a scripture in the Bible that reads, "Judge yourself, lest ye be judged." So Lot was likely supposed to be a judge, or have the capacity and function of a judge. He didn't. He didn't. So then God had no other choice but to come and judge the city, because the outcry of the wickedness in the city rose up to God, and now he has no, now he has to judge the city. But had Lot been in a mindset and in alignment with God, God would have talked to him about this and given him direction and instructions on how to judge the city, what to do, how to intercede. It took Abraham, who is on the other side of the land, to who's not even close, who doesn't even live in Sodom and Gomorrah, to intercede on behalf, because God eventually tells Abraham about what his plans are, which are to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. But it's interesting that the person who is sitting right there in the land itself is not interceding on behalf of the people. So that means Lot didn't have any concern or care for the immediate people that he was living among. He didn't nothing in that situation appealed to his senses, appealed to his heart, appealed to him to say, "Hey, maybe I should pray for them so they don't have to go down the wrong path." He was just there. He lived there. He got the fruits of none of his labor. He got whatever he experienced in that situation without working towards it or working for it. And so he was set. He didn't care anything about anything else. But that shows to you that kind of demonstrates to you that implies that he didn't have a relationship with God. So why Lot lingers? I believe it has a lot to do with vision. Lot lingers because he ignores wickedness. Destruction is at hand, but Lot lingers when the men urge him to leave. Lot would rather remain in a wicked city, in wicked surroundings, with wicked people, and with wickedness than to leave and exit wickedness. It is clear at some point, there's sometimes that you don't see things for what they really are. You can be blind to the situation. But the longer you stay in a situation of sin, wickedness, fornication, marital infidelity, any type of situation that is contrary to what God would have for you, it begins to pull on you. You begin to wear it like a coat. You adopt this attitude of I don't want to leave it. I love it here. So that means you are accepting of something in that city, in that place, in that environment. It could be a witchcraft situation. It could be um, having marital infidelities, multiple polyamorous type situations. It could be gang violence. It can be embezzling from a company. It can be a number of things under different categories that you have made a decision to stay. It is he's sitting at the gate, so you Lot is sitting at the gate, and you wonder then if he's vacillating between staying and leaving because he is at the gate. He's not like in his house until the two men come right, and he goes and he returns to his house. So you have to wonder if he really wants to be out. But then when the men warn him to leave, he lingers. He still lingers. And so if you're in this type of situation, that means you are ignoring the wickedness. You know the thing is wrong for you to do and accept, but you would rather have the some of the benefits that come with the wickedness, because most people secure, most people look for security, convenience, anything that's going to make them feel good, make them feel straight. But day by day, it is affecting you. It does have some kind of effect on you. So he would rather remain. He's ignoring the wickedness and accepting the fruits that come from the wickedness itself. Lot lingers because he is a failure. Lot knows the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and the people know him. However, Lot is a failure in that city because he has done nothing to resolve the issue of wickedness. The people perceive Lot as a judge, but he has done nothing to judge the current situation. To judge is to form an opinion or conclusion about something. So he's a failure because sometimes it's kind of tricky because it's a failure. A failure is a condition. You can fail something, and then you can continuously fail something, perpetually fail something, and then it leads into you becoming a failure. So again, we don't see any work ethic from Lot. We don't see him producing anything, but we do see the perception of the men who perceive him as a judge. So the fact that he didn't do anything, and he's forced to leave the city that he did not really contribute to, but he got the fruits of the labor of wickedness, right? Tells you a lot about why we must perceive him as a failure, because given the opportunity to judge the situation, and judge doesn't necessarily mean to be harsh. Judge could be to intervene on behalf of the wickedness to God. Why don't you see Lot actually praying to God to intervene and not Abram? So there's that dynamic then of success and failure, because God is saying to Abraham in scriptures, shall I hide from Abram my plans about Sodom and Gomorrah? Um, so then what if God, so then what, so when God tells Abram his plans, what if Abram did not intercede on behalf of the city? What if he didn't do it? Then Abram might be considered a failure as well, right? So he lingers because he is a failure. It's the only place where he is productive, unproductive at the same time. There's no uh, real indication of him putting his hands to anything. And so when you judge something, it is to form an opinion or conclusion about something. Lot lingers because he has no vision. He is considered a resident alien, nothing more, and he hasn't done anything to intercede on its behalf. Lot is an occupier, not a contributor. He waits with no vision in mind to do something. He sits at the gate as if that is the only productive thing he can do. And so this could be friendships. That's why they tell you, that's why there's this saying, elevation requires separation, because not everyone can go with you where you're going. God is the one who's already prepared you for where you're going. He didn't prepare that other person. And so when you try to take that other person, they don't have the vision. You don't even know what their work ethic is. If they try to go where you are going, it's going to have an impact on them in a very serious way. And so he's considered a resident alien, nothing more. He's an occupier. It's like a car sitting in the car lot, right? It's not moving. It's not doing anything. It's just taking up space. Another person could have that space, right? Another person could have that job and do better at it. Another person could have that task and do it much better. Another person could have that life assignment. Another person could have that talent. You got people who with great talent, but they won't use it. They have no vision, they have no instruction, or if they have received vision or instruction, they won't do anything with it. And so you can see a lot of people, you see a lot of people in prison with wasted talent. They sit up here, they tend to be very smart people and talented people. The problem with them is that they want what they want. They want the immediate gratification, and so they'll lie, kill, steal, and destroy to get what they want, and then they end up in prison. And that's when they begin to kind of discover their talent. Sometimes you can discover it much earlier, but that's when they do. And so now they're like, once you discover it, you can feel either free in your mind or not, but you are now in prison and you can't really apply it the way you could have applied it once you were out. But then sometimes they do get out and they still don't apply it. So they're just basically an occupier of their own body. They don't contribute anything. They have no vision in mind. The only vision that they have is to continue to stay in the cycle that they're in, just so they can return to prison, because is um, prison is their safety. It is their convenience. It's sitting at the gate with nothing productive to do. What can we learn from Lot? The most important thing that we can learn from Lot is to know your limits. Knowing your limits is further defined as know your life assignment. So know what you're called to do, know to whom you're called. Let God prepare you for that calling. Prepare extensively through prayer, study, and training. Know the limits of your calling. What is your contribution? And know when to pass the baton to the next person who is called by God. So I think a lot of times people try to take on too many tasks, too many responsibilities. They try to wear the burdens of other people's talents and assignments and things like that. And then that's where they get into trouble. Sometimes that trouble leads to some sort of physical ailment, mental ailment, financial ailment, um, physical ailment, anything, right? And so if you understand your life assignment, if you know that you are called to teach, right, then you have to determine what grade levels or whether it's at the college level. Okay, don't try to go beyond that. Don't just because you feel like you need more money. If you know you're supposed to teach eighth grade, teach eighth grade and do it very well, right? That's who you are assigned to. Um, um, and then sometimes you can have a side hustle, right? But if you know your calling and your life assignment, you can't even let your side hustle have a negative impact on the calling, right? And so let God prepare you for that calling. I don't know what kind of statement Lot could have had offered when Abraham was saying, if you go to the right, I go to the left. If you go to the left, I go to the right. Maybe Lot could have come up under the authority of Abram and say, "Hey, I still have a lot to learn. Can we still stay here? Can we reason together and stay here and learn something before I leave?" Because there was no mantle on Lot's life in terms of him receiving something from God through Abraham, right? And so we don't see preparation. We don't see what his contribution is going to be. The only thing that we see is a perception of the men when the men called him judge. And so then, if he's supposed to be a leader and take over a land because of, Lot just thinks because he has possessions and herdsmen and cattle that he's a leader, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's a leader. He just may have cattle, possessions, and herdsmen. Leadership is a completely different thing. Um, um, it would have been better for Lot to submit to Abram's authority and let Abram assign where Lot should go. Okay, but you can tell in the relationship between Abraham and Lot that there was no indication that Lot would have been receptive to that in the first place. The fact that Abram felt like he had to be more conciliatory in the situation tells you that he was tired. He didn't have the mental bandwidth to continue in that type of situation. So he let Lot pick. You must get the vision from the Lord when it comes to knowing your limits. So back up 2:2 to 3, and the Lord answered me and said, "Write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth them. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come; it will not tarry." So you get your vision from the Lord for anything that you're trying to do. You don't operate on your own in terms of your own understanding. We already know that because you have to get an education, you got to get a certification, you got to get some kind of correspondence education in order for you to be able to apply that understanding within the workforce. You don't operate on your own. You have a base knowledge of information. That's everything that you learned at home all the way up to high school graduation. So now you got to know where to take yourself. You got to look at what type of gifts and talents you have. You got to think about how God uh, sees you and perceives you and where He wants to take you and those gifts and talents. So you must get your vision from the Lord. And the vision is always for an appointed time. It's not. People get very confused and impatient because they think that the time is now. The time is not now. It never is, because you definitely have to prepare. Your time for now could be just you entering that preparation phase, but the preparation phase could be 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And so college is 4 years. Graduate school can be 2 to 3 years, right, depending upon the major um, or degree program. Preparation, when you go into the workforce, even if you didn't have college, everyone does what they always call put in your dues. That could be 2 to 5 years. You are preparing to learn about the company and the role that you're in. And now you're going to look out and see, where do I want to take myself? That's preparation. That's for a point of time. You can't come in thinking just because you are here for 6 months that you are supervisor material. You can become a supervisor, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you are truly supervisor material until you are tested. So the vision is yet for an appointed time. Okay. At the end, it shall speak. not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. So the vision that you get from the Lord has its own preparation time, it has its own time frame, has its own appointed time, it has its own season. But you must get your vision from the Lord whenever you're going to be in some sort of leadership role. Um, you're going to make some kind of contribution. Don't stay in places that don't receive you. This is the most important thing, because when you look at the men and how the men perceive Lot, there's some hostility there. So maybe again, Lot decided to do something but couldn't, and so he just threw up his hands and decided not to do. So Matthew 10:14 reads, "And whoever shall not receive you nor hear your words, then you depart out of that house or city, shake off the dust off your feet." These are words that Jesus tells the disciples when they enter a city. Okay. Now go back to Genesis 19:19, when the men are being hostile towards Lot. When Lot was the men wanted to sleep with the two men who came to warn Lot, and Lot is basically said, no, you can't do that, right? And the men say this, and they said, stand back. Then they said, this one came in to stay here, and he keeps acting as a judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them. So these are the men who have now completely rejected Lot. But rejection doesn't start right at that moment, right? It started somewhere prior when he first came to the city. And maybe there was some mantle on Lot that he did not have a full recognition of, awareness or consciousness of, but the men could see it. They could see it. And they decided in that moment that they were not going to receive him. So wherever when the first time they acted that way, Lot should have had the senses to perceive it. And once he perceived it, he should have left that land, because they don't receive you. And so then he should have shook the dust off his feet. And now wherever he returns, I don't know, there could have been um, um, another city that he could have gone to, like Zor, the very city that he said that he tells the two men to send him to instead of the mountains, is likely the city that he should have gone to instead of the plains of Jordan. But don't stay in places that don't receive you. As soon as you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they don't receive you there, now it depends. It really does depend. If God is having you there, there may be some struggles. There may be some pushback, right? But if they're hostile, it's not going to be so much to the point that you can't function. You can't do your work. You're going to have hostility. You're going to have indifference, right? But it can't be to the point that you can't do your work. But you perceive in Lot sitting at the gate, throwing up his hands and not doing the thing that is inherent in him to do, which is to judge. Develop a relationship with God. This helps you to know your limits. James 1:19-20. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. Psalms 32:8-9. I will instruct thee and teach thee in the way which thou shalt go. I will guide thee with mine eye. Be ye not as the horse or as the mule, which have no understanding, whose mouth must be held in with bit and bridle, lest they come near unto thee. So these are kind of like instructions that help you to develop a relationship with God. You cannot take over a city. You cannot take over a countryman. You cannot take over a place. You cannot assume a leadership role without a relationship with God. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It may work for you and for the people long term, but eventually they're going to turn on you. So you want to get your instruction from the Lord, and the only way you're going to do that is by having a relationship with God. So here's a popular scripture: trust in the Lord. So Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. So when you place your trust in the Lord, as soon as God gives you a position, as soon as God sends you to a place, As soon as God gives you a responsibility, as soon as you understand what your assignment is, as soon as you understand what contribution you're going to make, immediately trust in the Lord. Put your trust in the Lord. Lay prostrate, bend the knee, pray, but put your trust in the Lord, because that's the only way that He's going to be able um, to direct your path. God knows what the path is. God knows what needs to go on the path. God knows who the people are. God knows what it is you're supposed to do, what impact. Don't go to the right, don't go to the left. Do exactly what God would have for you to do in that situation. So this leads us to walking in agreement with the Lord. We should see in the same way that I'm okay. I'm doing a little bit of assuming here, but in the same way that you see this drawn out process by process relationship that Abraham has with God, because he's going to become the father of many nations. That's the vision. Then we should see that with Lot. Lot is not going to become the father of many nations, but there should be agreement between God and Lot when it comes to you being in an area that you feel that God is sending you, right? So Amos 3:3, can two walk together except they be agreed? Psalms 119, 105, thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. And then Galatians 5:16, that this I say then, walk in the spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. I think Psalms 119, 105 is probably the most important thing as well. That word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path, because you could decide to light your own light. You could decide to become your own light and light your own light and light your path, and you continue to walk on that path. But your path actually has darkness. Even though you may be calling it light, it really it's really darkness, because you don't have God's light. You don't have God's direction in the situation. That means it goes back to, can two walk together unless they be agreed? That's why you have so many issues with marriages. People in marriages. I've never been married, but I've had my share of being in disagreeable type situations where I believe one thing and they believed another, and I didn't catch it early enough for me to be able to exit the relationship timely enough. And so, can two walk together? You got one person who believes this, and you got another person who believes that. It's going to clash. It's going to have a problem. There's no way it's going to last. So you want to walk together with God in anything that He has you doing, because only God truly knows what it's supposed to be, what it's supposed to become, how your talents actually supposed to work, what your gifts and callings and assignment is supposed to do. All right, so we're at the end. Visit, subscribe, and follow. You will be able to find this presentation on my YouTube channel as well as on my website, Regina Y Favors, the preferred online curriculum you need for life recovery. That's on www.reginayfavors.com. Then you can visit my author store, www.reginayfavorsauthor.com. The Amazon store, amazon.com/author/Regina Y Favors, and then the YouTube channel at Regina Y Favors. So hopefully you were able to learn something from this topic on Lot and why he lingers and why he doesn't have vision, why he didn't get his vision from the Lord, why he's sitting at the gate, how he's perceived as a judge, but we don't see him judging, and the fact that he does not have a relationship with God that would help him to guide his hand and whatever he put his hand to. Keep this in mind as you go over this presentation. If you are also a Christian and you're studying your Bible, you may want to restudy the the part with Lot, but also information right before it in terms of how God is talking to Abram. It'll help you to understand why I say that Lot does not have a relationship with God compared to Abram. All right, thank you very much for listening.